She told me, "You're overreacting. If you loved me, you'd help my family." Then tried to move them in without asking. So I proved my love by choosing myself and let her learn what happens when the ATM walks away. My name is Ethan Walker. I'm 34, from Denver. When I met Samantha Reed, everything felt easy. For the first few months, it felt balanced and real. We split checks, traded turns planning weekends, and texted goodnight without drama. Little things started to change, so small I barely noticed. A spare hoodie in my closet, then more clothes. A drawer for her stuff turned into half the dresser. Soon she was here most nights. I didn't fight it. I liked waking up with her and making coffee together. We did groceries, cooked simple dinners, and talked about future trips we might take one day. I thought this was how two people grow closer, bit by bit, without a big speech. One night we were eating on the couch with a movie paused. I said, "We're together most of the time anyway. Do you see us making it official? Moving in, I mean." She looked at me like I'd said something wild. Then she laughed. "Ethan, stop acting like my husband." That line sat in the room like a sharp object. I hadn't asked for a ring. I'd only said what we were already doing. I told myself not to push it. Maybe she just needed space. A week later, she called, sounding stressed. "My lease is up soon. The new rate is crazy. I was thinking maybe I could stay with you for a while." I said yes. It felt natural. "We'll figure out expenses together," I added. Silence. I could hear the low hum of her car through the phone. "Actually," she said, "I was hoping you'd handle that stuff. Rent, utilities, the basics. You're already paying for the place. I wouldn't add much." I sat up. "So you'd move in but not contribute?" She didn't answer right away. When she did, her voice was soft. "I'm just trying to land on my feet." I tried to keep my tone steady. "We can talk through it. Maybe we split what's fair. Groceries, at least." She changed the subject. I let it go for the night, but the odd feeling stayed. From then on, the pace picked up. She brought over more bags. She started talking about the layout like it was ours, where we should put a plant, how we could set up the guest room. I wanted to be open, but a tightness built behind everything she said. If we were a team, why was money the one thing she kept pushing back onto me? I replayed her earlier line, "Stop acting like my husband." Yet here she was folding her life into mine like it was already decided. I didn't want to be petty. I wanted to be fair. So I told myself we'd sit down, write out a simple plan, and move forward like adults. Before that talk could happen, she called again. "The landlord is being difficult about the lease. If you could pay a few months up front for me, I could close it out clean. It's just easier that way." I stared at the wall. "You want me to pay your rent to end your lease?" "It's temporary," she said. "It'll make the transition smooth." I breathed in slow. "Samantha, I'm not comfortable with that." She went quiet, then said she had to run. I put my phone down and walked through the house. The space looked the same, but it didn't feel the same. Her shoes are by the door. Her hair tie is on my table. All these small signs of a future I did want, if it was built on both of us showing up. Later that week, we sat across from each other at my kitchen island. I set out 2 mugs. "We need to talk through money and boundaries," I said. "If we live together, we both carry the load." She looked past me, as if the conversation was an inconvenience. "I told you, I'm just trying to get settled." "I hear you," I said, "but I can't be the only one settling things." Her mouth pressed into a line. The distance between us grew even though we were 2 feet apart. I didn't know it yet, but this was the first crack that wouldn't close. She sighed and leaned back against the counter. "Ethan, you're the stable one. I'm just trying to get back on my feet. It's not forever." I wanted to believe her. I told myself she was under pressure, maybe between things. So I gave her some grace. I told her not to worry about the first month while she sorted her stuff out. But that first month turned into habits. She stopped reaching for her wallet when we ate out. Groceries became my job. When I mentioned splitting bills, she brushed it off with a quick, "You know I'll pay you back when things settle." Then one afternoon, she brought up something new. "Hey, so my landlord says I need to pay 3 months rent to close out early. Could you help with that? Just so I can break the lease peacefully?" I blinked. "You want me to pay rent for an apartment you're leaving?" "It's not about the apartment," she said. "It's about doing things the right way. I don't want bad credit or legal stuff. You'd help if you really cared, right?" That last line hit me wrong. If you cared. It wasn't a question, it was a test. I told her I'd think about it. But before I could bring it up again, she dropped another surprise. We were driving to dinner when she said, "Oh, and my family might need a place to stay for a bit. Just my mom, brother, and cousin. Only for a few months." "A few months." I repeated. "How many?" She hesitated. "Maybe 2, 3 years max. They're going through some things." I glanced at her. "Samantha, I barely have room for guests. That's not realistic." She crossed her arms. "See, this is what I mean. You say you want a future, but when it's time to step up, you hesitate. You keep acting like we're married. But the moment real life shows up, you back off. I pulled over near the restaurant. You're asking me to pay your rent and host your entire family. How is that fair? She turned away from me. You say you love me, right? Then prove it. I didn't answer right away. Because what do you say to that? Love isn't proof you sign with your wallet. That night, I barely ate. My appetite was gone, replaced by confusion. Was I wrong for wanting partnership instead of dependency? Over the next few weeks, the pattern grew clearer. She stopped contributing entirely. No groceries, no bills, no gas. Every time I tried to talk about it, she made it about feelings. If you cared, you wouldn't make me feel like a burden. If you want a partner, you should be a provider. I wanted peace, so I let too much slide. I told myself it was temporary, that she'd find her footing again. But each day, I felt more like an ATM with arms than a boyfriend. One evening, I came home early and heard her in the living room on a call. Her voice was casual, almost proud. He's basically taking care of everything, she told her mom. If we play this right, we'll be set for years. I froze. We'll be set for years? I stood there, hearing her laugh softly like it was a done deal. That was the moment it clicked. I wasn't part of her life plan. I was the plan. She didn't see us as a team. She saw me as a resource. Later that night, I asked her straight out, what did you mean about being set for years? She looked annoyed. You were eavesdropping? Seriously, Ethan? That's not an answer, I said quietly. She sighed. I just meant we'd have stability, okay? Why do you twist everything? But I wasn't twisting it. For the first time, I was seeing it clearly. From that night on, I started paying attention. She called my house our place. She told her brother he could crash for a bit, before even asking me. She talked about rearranging rooms for her mom. It wasn't a partnership anymore. It was possession. And deep down, I knew something had to change before I lost myself completely. When I finally brought it up, she looked at me like I was being dramatic. Ethan, you're overreacting. You said you love me, right? Then why are you making everything about money? I took a slow breath. Because it's not just money, Samantha. It's an effort. It's fairness. I'm not asking for luxury. I'm asking for partnership. She rolled her eyes and muttered something under her breath. That moment hit hard. It wasn't about us anymore. It was about what she could get away with. I walked out to the porch that night, sat on the steps, and just stared at the driveway. I thought about all the little signs I'd ignored. Her laughter when I mentioned commitment. The guilt trips every time I asked her to pitch in. The way she dismissed real concerns as if they were personal attacks. It was like I'd been slowly traded in for someone else's role, a caretaker. The warmth we started with was gone, replaced by silent expectations and emotional strings. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept hearing her voice in my head. Stop acting like my husband. Funny how that line became the foundation of everything she asked for afterwards. She didn't want a husband, just the perks of one. I lay awake until sunrise and made a decision. I was done reacting. From now on, I'd observe. I'd gather proof of what was really happening. Because if I walked away, I wanted to be certain. So, I started planning quietly. During the day, I acted calm and smiled, and went along when she talked about how our family would move in soon. At night, I saved messages and notes. Every time she mentioned me paying for her rent, or how my house was perfect for all of us. I wasn't plotting revenge. I just wanted clarity. Something to look at when I doubted myself. A few days later, she invited her family over to see the place. She didn't even ask first, just texted, they're on their way. When they arrived, it felt like a preview of the life she wanted me to fund. Her mom walked through every room, talking about where she'd put her things. Her cousin asked about the Wi-Fi. Her brother opened the fridge and joked, man, this is nice. You've got space for all of us. I smiled politely, but inside, I was counting every red flag. They spoke about the house like it were already theirs. Samantha didn't correct them once. She looked around proudly, like she was showing off something she'd earned. At one point, her brother leaned against the counter and said, you're a good one, man. Most guys wouldn't take all this on. I looked him in the eye and said, yeah, most guys wouldn't. He laughed, thinking it was a joke. But it wasn't. After they left, the silence in the house felt heavy. I went to the guest room, the one her mom had already picked out, and just stood there. It was my home, but I didn't feel at home in it anymore. That night, I sat across from Samantha at the table. She was scrolling on her phone, humming softly. Sam, I said, we need to talk. She looked up, half distracted. About what? About everything. About how this has turned into me carrying all the weight. She shrugged. I told you, I'm just getting through a tough time. You act like I'm asking for the world. I looked at her calmly. You're not asking for the world, Samantha. You're asking for mine. She didn't reply, just stared, trying to read me. And in that pause, I knew I was done explaining myself. The next conversation we had would be the last one about this. I didn't raise my voice and fight. I was finished fighting for something one-sided. Because at that point, I'd realized love wasn't the issue anymore. Leverage was. And I wasn't going to be used as a solution to someone else's plan. A few days later, Samantha's family stopped by again. This time, they came with boxes. Actual boxes. Her brother looked around and said, half joking, "Guess we'll start settling in soon, huh?" I gave a polite smile, but inside, I'd already made my choice. That night, after dinner, I turned to her. "Sam, we need to talk. Really talk." She set her fork down. "What now, Ethan?" "I've had a long day. I've been thinking," I said. "You're right. I have been acting like your husband. Paying for everything. Making plans for both of us. Trying to hold it all together." She smiled, like she'd finally won an argument. "Finally, you get it." "Oh, I get it," I said quietly. "I get that you don't want a partner. You want a sponsor. Someone to handle your bills, house your family, and never ask for anything back." Her smile dropped. "What's that supposed to mean?" "It means I'm done," I said. "You told me to stop acting like your husband. So, I'm done paying like one." Her eyes widened. "Wait, what?" "Ethan, we talked about this. My lease, my family." I held up a hand. "Your lease is your problem. Your family is your responsibility. Not mine." She leaned back, arms crossed. "So you're just going to throw me out after everything I've done for you?" I let out a short laugh. "Everything you've done? Sam, you've lived here for months, rent-free. I've paid for groceries, utilities, trips, gas, everything. You've given me guilt trips in return." She frowned. "You're being cruel. I thought you loved me." "I did," I said. "But love isn't a one-way street. You turned it into a contract where only one side pays." She stood up, her voice sharp. "You'll regret this. You're walking away from a real woman." I looked at her calmly. "No, Sam. I'm walking away from someone who confused love with leverage." She stormed off, grabbed her purse, and started packing whatever she could reach. Every few minutes, she muttered something: selfish, cheap, emotionally unavailable. I didn't argue. I just let her go. When she left, the house felt heavy at first. Her absence wasn't peaceful. It was loud, full of echoes and silence. But even through that quiet, I felt something new building underneath it: relief. For days after, she sent texts. Some angry, some pleading. "You're really giving up on us? So that's it. You'll regret letting me go." I didn't respond. There wasn't anything left to say. A week later, a mutual friend called me. He'd heard she was telling people I kicked her out for no reason. I didn't defend myself. People believe what they want. The truth doesn't need a crowd. But what surprised me most wasn't what she said. It's what she didn't say. She never once mentioned love. Every message, every story she told, it was about money. It confirmed everything I'd felt. For so long, I thought I was being too harsh, too careful, too skeptical. But when someone only values what you provide, not who you are, that's not love. That's a business arrangement. So I stopped checking her social media. I stopped asking about her through friends. I went to work, cleaned the house, and started sleeping better. And little by little, my peace came back. Still, I couldn't help but wonder, did she ever really care? Or was I just a step in her plan all along? I didn't have an answer then. But a few weeks later, I got one. And it came from someone I didn't expect. About 3 weeks later, I got a text from a mutual friend. "Dude, you seriously dodged a bullet." I asked what he meant. He told me Samantha had tried the same thing with another guy. Moved in fast, hinted at temporary rent help, even brought her mom around again. But that guy wasn't as patient. He kicked her out within a month. Word spread fast. People started noticing the pattern. The same friends who once called her independent began realizing she wasn't looking for love. She was looking for a lifestyle someone else would fund. Hearing that, I didn't feel proud or smug. I just sat there, quiet. It was strange how something that once tore you apart could later feel like a lesson you're grateful for. After that, I started cleaning house, literally. Packed up her leftover things, donated what I could, and repainted the guest room. The walls felt lighter without all the tension. I opened the blinds more. Played music again. It wasn't about revenge or winning. It was about reclaiming peace. Over time, I found myself cooking dinner for one and actually enjoying it. My savings started to rebuild. My days felt simple again. Work, walks, quiet evenings. No guilt trips. No constant demands. Just calm. Then, 3 months later, I ran into her at a coffee shop. She looked different. Tired. Her hair was tied back loosely, wearing a hoodie that didn't seem like her usual style. When she noticed me, she gave a small, unsure smile. "Hey," she said softly. "Long time." "Yeah," I replied. "It's been a while." She glanced at her cup. "How have you been?" "Better," I said honestly. She nodded slowly. "You were right about everything." I stayed quiet. "I thought I could get by without giving much," she continued. "But turns out, people don't like that." Her tone wasn't defensive this time. Just honest. Maybe even a little sad. I nodded. I hope you figure things out, Sam. She looked like she wanted to say more, maybe apologize, but she didn't. And I didn't need her to. The closure wasn't in the words. It was in the quiet understanding that we were done. As I walked out, I realized something I hadn't before. She hadn't just taught me what to avoid. She'd reminded me what a real partnership should feel like. Effort. Respect. Because love without respect is manipulation. Support without reciprocity is servitude. And when someone tells you to stop acting like a husband, believe them. Don't try to earn affection by overgiving. If love isn't mutual, your kindness becomes currency, and your generosity becomes their expectation. That night, I went home, made dinner, and sat by the window. The house was quiet, but it wasn't empty anymore. It was mine again. My space. My peace. And for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I'd lost something. I felt like I'd finally taken something back. My boundaries, my balance, my self-worth. So yeah, maybe I should thank her. Not for what she did, but for what I learned. I appreciate you watching till the end. Hit that subscribe button and stay tuned for more content.